All right. Before being self-employed and running my own businesses, I was working a 9 to 5 job. And in this one, I want to talk about why I can't ever see myself going back to a 9 to 5 job. I worked a 9 to 5 job for about 6 years after college. In 1 month, my side hustles made more than my 9 to 5 full-time job. And that is about when I went all in with my self-employment and businesses. So in this one, I want to take a step back and talk about my journey from college all the way up till now and just a few years ago when I quit the 9 to 5 lifestyle to pursue my own businesses and self employment and go that route and how it's been going so far. So, my goal in college was always just to graduate. Honestly, in college, I can't say that I learned a ton with specific classes. Definitely learned a lot of life lessons, got the degree, figured that I could get, any kind of job out there after school with kind of a general business degree. It wasn't exactly just business, but in that department, really my first taste of actual work was in college as well because I played so many sports in high school. I didn't have time to get a job. But in college, one of my first jobs was working at a car dealership. And still, that is the hardest job I've ever had. I did it in the summers in between college. And I think I made about $12 an hour working there plus probably like $5 a day in tips. I worked at a car dealership as a porter, is what they called it. So people brought their cars into the service department. And if I could fix them, I would, fixing things like headlights or resetting their radio, small things like that. And if we couldn't fix it, we'd send them into the service department and basically drive their car back to the parking lot, kind of like valet. But the reason why it was so hard is because we worked 10-hour shifts where we were standing for the majority of the shift. The only time we sat down is when we were inside a car. And also, this was in the summer in Sacramento. It was over 100 degrees like almost every day working outside. 10-hour shifts, insanely hard job. But I also had other jobs in college. I worked as a youth sports referee, refereeing football, basketball. That was super fun, but I think that was even lower paying at $10 an hour. But this is back in, 2012, something like that. And then I also started my first online business in college. It was just a really small side hustle. I wasn't that big into side hustling and stuff. In college, I was more focused on school and some odd jobs I could pick up. I didn't really know that making money online was a thing back again in 2012, 2013. But the first thing I did online was I started a website on Blogger and basically got the idea to post YouTube highlight clips of sports on a blog post. Basically, I took the YouTube video, embedded it in the post, and then I would rank on Google for say, LeBron James windmill dunk last night or whatever. And when someone Googled that, my link would pop up and then they would come to my site. It actually generated a good amount of traffic. Blogger paid for web traffic because they put ads on your site. I think the most I ever made in a month was like $50, but I literally spent, 5 minutes a day on it, posting one highlight. Kind of a cool, my little foray into side hustle and online business. But another thing I did towards the end of college was Teespring. So this was basically the start of print on demand. I think it was before companies like Printful and Printify. I did Teespring. Basically, how it worked, you made a shirt design and you sent the link out. At that point on Teespring, you had to hit a certain goal. I think it was like at least 5 sales, or maybe it was like $20 in profit before they actually made these shirts. So I'd send the link out in different Reddit groups to these shirts I was making. And I had one shirt that really popped off. I think it's like 40 something people bought it. And I made, $5 per shirt in a couple days. So I thought that was pretty awesome. But that quickly died out as well. And then after graduating college, didn't know what I wanted to do. So I found a 9 to 5 office job working in literally a cubicle. Reminded me of that show, The Office. Honestly, it was pretty comical. The people working there, most of them didn't have college degrees. I was one of the few working there, and it was $15 an hour on a contract position. There were full-time employees there as well, but I think there was about 20 or 30 contractors that worked there. So I had a 10-month contract, and that was the easiest job I've had ever. Like, you would go into the office at 9. I would usually take it slow, not start work till 10. And basically I would go through my list of stuff I had to do for work that day, and I could usually get it done in 2 to 3 hours. So by lunchtime at 12 or 1, I was done with all my work. I would take a long lunch, come back, and just have like 2 or 3 hours at the end of the day to do nothing. So I started working on side hustles then. And, that's when Robinhood came out. I started messing around with Robinhood and stock trading and things like that as well. But, for $15 an hour, it was crazy low. Like I couldn't afford to move out of my parents' house at that point. And then at the end of the contract, they interviewed all the contractors for a full-time position. I'm not actually sure how many of them ended up doing the interview. I know some people didn't do it, but I was one of two people they offered the full-time position to. I was pretty excited at first, and then they offered me $32,000 salary with benefits, and I was like, that is not what I was expecting. I was expecting something over 40,000 a year. And looking around at people in this job, they were in their 40s, making under 40K, and I was like, I can't be here in 20 years still making less than $40,000. So I turned it down, and I'm glad I did actually, because the runner up was one of my friends who was a contractor. She was a single mom. I think she was like 30, and she ended up getting the job because I turned it down. So definitely glad that she got that job that she really wanted. And honestly, I didn't want it that much. So it definitely felt good giving it to someone who really wanted that job. And she definitely earned it, honestly. I didn't give her the job. But then after that, I had to find another 9 to 5 job. My side hustling was beginning. I was starting some print on demand stuff at that point, started a couple websites with Amazon affiliate links and things like that. But again, I wasn't making over 1,000 a month side hustling. So had to find another 9 to 5 job. Ended up moving to Denver, Colorado, because there was a ton of tech jobs out in Denver, I heard, and I wanted to work in tech. So I moved out there, ended up getting a job in Boulder, but living in Denver. And this is the first reason why I can't see myself going back to a 9 to 5. I know a lot of jobs now are remote for the most part, for at least some of your work week, or maybe even all of it. But back before, in 2017, that was pretty uncommon. So I was driving every day 22 miles each way to Boulder from Denver. It was about 45 minutes each way. And it's just crazy to think about now that I was commuting an hour and a half every single day and not getting paid for that. And also gas is about $3 a gallon, so I was spending about $4 every day just to get to work with gas money. And I ended up taking the bus some days as well because our company gave us bus passes, but that took like an hour to get to work. Just crazy looking back now that I was actually doing that. I can't imagine doing that now. This job was good. It was at a tech startup, and I was one of the first 8 employees. I think I was number 8, and it grew to 20 people, I think, by the time that I left. But I worked my way up from, just a $36,000 a year salary to 71,000, nearly double by the time I left, and worked my way up to a director role with the company as well. And I was there 4 years. During that time, I really got into drop shipping and print on demand. I had one really successful drop shipping store that made a good amount of money, and it was basically printing money with Instagram shoutouts, which people didn't know how much their Instagram accounts were worth back then. So, accounts with 100,000 real followers would take $10 for Instagram shoutout, and I could get like 10 sales and make, over $100 in profit per shout out. So that was pretty nuts. But then that kind of died off, and I got into print on demand again with Etsy. And that was my main thing as a side hustle while I was doing my 9 to 5 job. And I grew a apparel store with hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts to over $1,000 at the end of that store. It was making about $1,500 in profit every single month, after all the expenses of print on demand and Etsy fees and all that. It was $1,500 in profit a month. But if you guys have seen some of my Etsy videos, you know that what I really preach to do on Etsy, especially now, is to stand out from the crowd. You can't just make a t-shirt that's, funny cat t-shirt, something like that. There's millions of those out there. You got to be very unique now with your text designs and what the text says, or the image, or, do other products besides just t-shirts. So that's what I did on Etsy back in, I guess this was 2018, 2019, maybe. I started a poster store, which was not popular at all on Etsy. And I niched down to like actors, musicians, famous athletes, and I made heavily edited designs on posters that were big, like 3 feet by 2 feet, big size posters. The first month of that store, I made $3,000 in profit. My first Etsy store, it took me a year to get over $1,000 in profit per month. This one, the first month, I made $3,000 in profit with this new product. There were some posters on there, but not really in the niches I was doing. Just in general, there weren't a lot of posters, and especially the way I was marketing it, it was a matte poster that came with a frame. So I was like calling it a framed print, which definitely sounded a lot better than just a poster, and I could charge a lot more. The second month, I made over $5,000 in profit with that store and over $7,000 in total with the two Etsy stores. So remember, I'm making $71,000 at my 9 to 5 job, but also just in 1 month, I made over $7,000 with print on demand on Etsy, which comes out to $84,000 a year if you're making $7,000 every month. So I was making more in a month on Etsy than I was at that 9 to 5 job. So after a few months of that, I went all in with Etsy. I started to diversify before going all in. I did Redbubble, which I've heard is kind of dead now, but was fairly profitable, and Merch by Amazon, which is still really good and still something that I do a lot of. So I basically had 3 platforms to sell on. Etsy was still probably 80% of the sales by the time that I went all in with that. And when I first went all in, waking up on Monday and thinking like, okay, I've made, 10 designs for print on demand and I've uploaded them to the 3 sites. It's 10:30 a.m. now. What am I going to do with the rest of my day? It was kind of crazy. So thinking about that, just so much free time off the bat, because print on demand, it's hard to work, more than a couple hours a day on your print on demand stores. Like there's only so much you can do besides just make more and more designs and optimize your ads. So then I had the idea of just starting a bunch of different side hustles and trying to scale each one to $1,000 in profit. So I went in on YouTube. I did another drop shipping store, and I started a reselling business. Were the 3 things that I started off the bat. And with reselling, quickly became really good at that. I still do that. It can make anywhere from like 500 to 1,000 a month with minimal work. And then after a few months, I started writing on sites like Fiverr and Upwork. Slowly, I started charging $5 for a good sized article, and slowly it bumped it up. Now I charge, $15 for the same thing I was charging $5 for back then. And, for 1,000 words now, I charge like $75. So really have grown that up over time as well. So I've tried a ton of different side hustles, grown them all up. Another reason why I can't see myself going back to the 9 to 5 is just because all these businesses that I've built up now, it's like around 10 of them that are doing fairly well, at least making a few $100s a month, with some of them making multiple thousands. I can't just see myself just giving that up for a 9 to 5 job that pays $100,000 a year when I have all these businesses that are continuing to grow, and I just keep growing and adding more and more businesses. Right now, my main business is doing Discord communities. So try to provide a ton of value to a paid Discord community and charge $10 a month to get people in there, and try to provide them value where they want to, re-up every month and remain a part of that community. So that's the thing I'm doing now. It could change year to year, sometimes even month to month, of what I'm focusing on the most and what's making me the most money. So it's just a ton of fun being self-employed and having a bunch of different side hustles that all come together to make your total income. And the craziest part for me about going back to a 9 to 5 is, say you go back to a 9 to 5 and you make $100,000 a year. How often do you get a raise in a 9 to 5? I would say at most once a year. And for most people, it's every 18 months, maybe even 2 years. So no matter how good you do at your job for a year, you're going to make the same amount of money every single month for that year. You could be making the company more and more money every month, but you're not going to see that money, I guess, unless you're in sales, which I wasn't. But it just is crazy to me that you could put in a ton of work every day, every month, and not be rewarded for that work, essentially. So that's another reason. And then also just the freedom is crazy. Like I talked about, that first day, like getting done with my work from 9 to 10:30 and just being like, okay, It's crazy. I have so much free time. You know, it's the afternoon now. I've already made a few $100s in print on demand sales, and I haven't really done anything. And, you know, if I just go the rest of the day, it's going to be, you know, over 500 in revenue probably for the day. So it's just crazy to think about. And, you know, just the freedom I have right now to go to Europe. I was just in Europe for 2 weeks, and they have internet in Europe. Breaking news here, but you know, I was able to do some stuff in the morning and at night, and then just have the full day in Europe and come back. And you know, nothing's really changed with my businesses. We're making money while I was there, and you know, they're still growing while I was there. I guess one of the main things and last points is just doing the same thing every day is crazy. Going into the office, or even if you work from home, logging on at 9 a.m., going through meetings, doing work, logging off at 5 p.m. You know, it just seems so crazy to me now that I've been doing this for, I guess, almost 3 years. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, check out this current challenge I'm doing where every week I'm putting out a video of how much money I'm making with these brand new side hustles that I've just started a week and a half ago. I've already made, you know, a few $100s in this challenge. Episode 2 is coming out pretty soon. So here I'll link episode 1, just watch them in order. And hope you guys enjoyed this one. Subscribe to the channel if you did, and we'll see you in another video.